Imagine you move to a new city. You don't know the neighborhood yet. You don't know where you'll be working. You don't even know if you like the place. So you rent a flat. Makes sense, right? You're not going to buy a house before you know how you actually live there. Now, your business did exactly the same thing. When you started out, you grabbed Slack, you grabbed a project management tool, maybe a CRM, and you moved in. And just like a rental flat, someone else chose the layout. Someone else picked the kitchen. And if you want to knock through a wall, well, you can't. It's not your wall. That was fine. That was the right call. But some of you have been living in that rental for 5, 6, or 7 years now, and you're still submitting maintenance tickets instead of just fixing things yourself. In this video, I'm going to break down why your entire software stack is rented, why that was actually the smart move when you began, and the exact signals that tell you that now it's time to stop renting and start building something that you actually own. I'm Sean, I run Foundana, where we design and build custom internal software for service businesses. And if you want to learn how to build this stuff yourself, that's what we teach inside Stack Labs. Both of the links are in the description. So let's make this concrete, because once you see your SaaS stack through this lens, you can't unsee it. Every SaaS tool you use works on the same model. You pay monthly, you get access, you don't own anything. The moment you stop paying, you lose everything. The data, the workflows, the logins, all gone. That's a rental agreement. That is literally the definition of renting. You're paying someone else for temporary access to a space they designed for a generic tenant. And just like a rental flat, there are rules. You can't move the walls, you can't change the plumbing, you get the kitchen they gave you, whether it works for how you cook or not. And in software terms, that means you get the fields they decided on, the reports they built, the integrations that they support. And if your business needs something different, well, you have to raise a ticket and just wait until they decide whether to build it or not. Think about how many tools you're actually renting right now. Your CRM, your project management, your invoicing, email marketing, your file storage, analytics, communication tools, scheduling software. Most founders I work with are running somewhere between 8 and 15 different SaaS subscriptions, and every single one of them is a separate landlord with separate rules, separate logins, and separate ideas about how your business should work. You're not running one rental, you're running a portfolio of rentals, and none of the landlords actually talk to each other. But here's the thing I want to be really clear about, because this is where most anti-SaaS takes get it wrong. Renting was the right call. When you were starting out, you had no idea what your business actually needed. You didn't know which processes would matter. You didn't know how your team would work. You didn't even know if the business was going to survive the first year. So you grabbed off-the-shelf tools, cheap, fast, no commitment, and that was genuinely smart. Just like renting a flat in a new city is smart. You're learning. You're figuring out what matters before you commit. SaaS gives you speed. It gives you flexibility. And it lets you try things out without betting the farm on custom-built software that might not even solve the right problem. That's valuable. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it isn't. The issue isn't that you rented. The issue is that a lot of you never stopped. You figured out how your business works. You know your processes now. You know your team. You know your customers inside out. You've been living in the city for years and you're still renting. And the worst part, most founders don't even realize there's an alternative. They just assume this is how it works. You pay the landlord forever. So let's talk about the signs, because there's a specific moment where renting stops being smart and starts costing you. And most people sail right past it without even noticing. Sign 1, the workarounds. You've got a spreadsheet that exists purely to bridge two tools that don't talk to each other. Someone on your team manually copies data from one system to another every morning. You built Zapier automations just to make your renter tools play nice. And those automations have become their own maintenance problem. Sign 2, the feature ceiling. You need a report your tool can't generate. You need a field that doesn't exist yet. You need a workflow that almost works, but would require a specific change. And the answer from the vendor is, it's not on our roadmap, or that's not available on your plan. Sign 3, the cost creep. You started at 50 quid a month, then you added seats, then you upgraded for that one feature, then you added another tool because the first one couldn't do something, and now you're spending hundreds, maybe thousands a month across the stack where half the features go unused. There's actually a fascinating example of this in nature. Hermit crabs. They don't grow their own shells. They find empty ones and move in. And as they grow, they have to find bigger shells. So they're constantly searching, trying on, discarding, searching again. And the crazy stat that stopped me in my tracks, hermit crabs spend up to 30% of their total energy just finding and switching shells. A third of everything I've got goes to housing logistic. Not feeding, not reproducing, not defending themselves, just finding somewhere to live. Compare that to snails. Snails grow their own shells. The shell fits perfectly. because it was built around them. They spend zero energy on housing logistics. All of that energy goes into actually living. Now think about your business. How much of your team's energy goes into managing the stack? Switching between tools, working around limitations, maintaining integrations, training new hires on 14 different platforms. That's hermit crab energy. You're scrambling across the ocean floor looking for the next shell, when really you could be growing your own. And the longer you keep renting, the more energy you burn on logistics, instead of the work that actually moves your business forward. If this is clicking for you, don't forget to hit subscribe and drop a comment. How many SaaS tools is your business actually running right now? Count them. I bet the number is way higher than you think. So this is the part where people get nervous, because to build your own software sounds massive. It sounds expensive. It sounds like something only big companies with development teams can actually do. And 5 years ago, that'd have been right. Custom software used to cost 6 figures of budget. It used to take 12 months and a team of developers who may not actually build what you want. And that was the reality. But thankfully, the reality is now gone. And I want to explain why I see this so clearly, because it's not just a business observation I've had. It's, for me, quite personal. My dad is a builder and architect, so growing up, we lived in about 10 different houses, and most of them he built from scratch. I watched him do it my entire childhood. He'd look at a plot, understand the land, figure out how the family would actually live in the space, and then he'd build around that. And as an adult, I've done a similar thing. I've rented flats, I've owned places, I've built properties from the ground up. I rent out to other people now too. So I know property. I've been on every side of the transaction. And when I started building software for businesses, the parallels were just impossible to ignore. Renting a SaaS tool feels exactly like renting a flat. Someone else's layout, someone else's rules, maintenance tickets instead of just fixing things, and building custom software feels exactly like what my dad did. You figure out how the people actually live, and then you build around that. You do it custom, you make it for yourself. But the thing that genuinely surprises me, in property, everyone seems to understand that the ownership model is great and the thing you should be aiming for. Nobody thinks renting forever is the dream. You rent to get started, you learn what you need, and then you start building what it will actually become yours. That's the natural progression in the world. In business and in software, it's quite different. Founders don't even realize they're renting. They're never being told that there's an ownership option. They just keep paying the landlord and assume that's how it works. In property, everyone knows you rent first and build later. In software, almost nobody does. And that gap is costing businesses a fortune. That's exactly why I wanted to make this video. So what does building actually look like in practice? Using the modern stack, tools like Lovable for the interface, Supabase for the database, N18 for the automation layer, you can build a custom internal system that does what your 10 rented tools used to do in one place, designed around how your business actually works. And I'm not talking about replicating every feature of every SaaS tool you've ever used. I'm talking about building the 20% of functionality that your team uses 90% of the time and building it in a way that actually fits. No unnecessary rooms, no walls you can't move, just the space you need, designed for how you actually live. And the timeline? Well, we're talking weeks these days, not months. Thousands, not hundreds of thousands. The barrier to ownership has absolutely collapsed. Most founders just haven't noticed yet. All right, so let's pull this together into something you can actually act on, because this isn't an all or nothing decision. It's really just a sequence. Step one, rent. This is where most of you already are, and that's fine. You grab the tools, you learn the workflows, you figured out your business, and that was the right call. Don't feel bad about it. Step two, observe and learn. This is the step most people skip. Before you build anything, you need to understand what you're actually replacing and why. Which tool causes the most friction? Where does your team burn most of their time, and where are all the workarounds? What are the 3 or 4 core processes that actually run your business? If you can't answer those questions clearly, then you're not yet ready to actually build. And that's okay. It means you're still in the learning phase. Stay there until the answers are absolutely obvious. Step 3 is building. Start with one thing, not the whole stack, one system. The one part that your team uses the most, the one with the most workarounds, the one that costs you in both time and money and frustration. Replace that one. Get it right, live with it for a few weeks, see how it functions, then look at what's next. That's the playbook. Rent, learn, build. In property, everyone follows this sequence quite naturally. In software, most founders get stuck on step 1 forever. Not because they choose to, but mainly because nobody ever showed them that steps 2 and 3 actually exist. And sure, I hear you, you don't have a dev team and you don't know how to build software. And I'm not sure I've got the time to figure this all out. Okay, fair, but here's the honest truth. The time you're spending right now managing 14 different tools, bridging gaps, and managing spreadsheets, training new hires on a stack that doesn't make sense, that's time too. It's just invisible. It's the hermit crab tax. And it compounds every month. Just remember, you don't have to build everything at once. You don't have to build it yourself. You just have to recognize that the rental phase has an endpoint. And for a lot of you, that point was a while ago, I bet. So here's the thing, knowing when to build is step one. But the next question is, how do you make sure that you actually build something good? Because there's a massive difference between cobbling something together and building software that your team genuinely wants to use. So in this next video, I break down the 5 principles that Google, Uber, Spotify, all of those big companies actually do right, and why most internal tools completely miss them. It's the difference between software that sits unused and software that becomes the backbone of your business. That video is right here, ready to go. And if you don't want to figure this out alone, if you want someone to look at your stack, identify what to replace first, and build the thing that fits, that's what Foundana actually does. Links in the description. Or if you're a builder who wants to learn how to do this all by yourself, join us in Stack Labs. Also in the description. Stop renting, start owning, and I'll see you in the next one.